So welcome. Thank you all for joining. And those later that are watching the recording, thank you for taking the time to do so. I'm Kristen White, the compliance consultant at Morris & Garritano. During this webinar, you can use the Q&A feature to submit general questions. However, for company-specific questions, it's best to reach out separately. The good news is that we do not have any fundamental changes this round. The IRS form's the same, the Navigator functionality is essentially the same. So for our experienced folks using Navigator for ACA reporting, this will act as a refresher. There is a new distribution feature that we'll touch on. For those new to ACA or new to Navigator for reporting, we know this can feel like a daunting task, but you're in the right place. This webinar is designed as the second session of a two-part series. The first webinar is ACA 101, where we cover general information with topics such as what determines if a company needs to file and which forms, deadlines, affordability safe harbor, penalties, and distribution options. Today, we're going to focus on using Employee Navigator for that filing. On our M&G website, we have an ACA page with information on both. We already posted the recording and slides for the ACA 101 webinar. Give us a few days, then we'll also post the items for this webinar. For those that register, we will email those to you. However, some emails can end up in spam, so I encourage you to check our site. If you've not yet watched ACA 101 webinar, I highly encourage you to do so. Employee Navigator ACA reporting tool is self-service, meaning you're responsible to go through the steps and ensure the data is accurate. But it also means you have control of what you file, with even some options. Especially for those of you new to ACA Reporting Navigator, I don't want you to feel alone. Take the time to review both these webinars, both the slides and recordings, then reach out with questions. Navigator offers their ACA tool for you to prepare the data at no additional cost. Then you will transmit the data to their partner, Nelco, who does the actual filing and distribution, which comes with a fee to you. Nelco provides both a la carte and bundle options. The most cost-effective by far, and the most common is this federal bundle that we have bold here. In this one, Nelco will file with the IRS. Then for distribution, they will print and mail hard copies. Plus, active employees will have access to online retrieval in Navigator. So that's the new piece. Starting this round, Navigator now has an option for employees to access their forms directly from the Navigator site. Reminder that only current employees have access to Navigator. Since the most common delivery option is still print and mail hard copies, I foresee using this new feature when active employees come to you later asking for a copy. Instead of you sending them an additional copy yourself, you can direct them to Navigator. During ACA 101, I talk through the distribution options that the IRS allows, including a new upon request option. If you are considering the new method, then be sure to review that section of the 101 webinar to be aware of the requirements, including posting a notice on your public website. But even if you are selecting that upon request, you would still want to select one of these options that has a distribution. Because if you select file only, then you're not going to actually get a copy of the 1095s without a watermark to be able to distribute. Reminder that on state filing, this is only for our fully insured medical plans, which most of you have fully insured, meaning you do not have to do state filing. So for state filing, your carrier will handle that if you're fully insured. That's why you can do this federal one. But if you have a self-funded or level funded plan, that's when you need to do state filing. So if you have that, you need help, then reach out. Okay, so here's the pricing we have here, and that's really what is new this round. So that was the new stuff. Now let's get into the data. We start with what we call pre-reporting steps. These are items and tools that are really meant for you to use even prior to the reporting calendar year, meaning prior to 2025. Plus used to ensure you maintain clean data throughout the year. So if you're just learning these for the first time, it's not too late. For going forward, I encourage you to follow these steps throughout the year. That will ease the work you need to do next January. ACA reporting is simply a summary of your medical plans that you offered during the calendar year. Navigator pulls the HR and benefits data that you have in the system, and there's just simply a button for you to generate forms. If your company setup and your employees' HR and medical benefits data is complete and accurate, then the actual reporting should only take you an hour or so. Even separate from the actual reporting, these are items you'd want to have populate anyway to ensure you're offering coverage to the appropriate employees. ALEs are required to offer medical coverage to all full-time employees. However, for ACA reporting, you also need the total count of all employees each month. So with that, we recommend you maintain all your employees in Navigator. We have the HR data items listed here. The type of pay information needed is based on your affordability safe harbor, which we cover in ACA 101, and we have information on our ACA page. Most companies use the rate of pay safe harbor, which means, you guessed it, you need to maintain base pay rates in the system. Of course, you also need their medical benefits information. That's not only if they enroll, but really if you offered them the coverage. If you don't have all this data in Navigator, we highly recommend you add it. Otherwise, you'll have a lot of manual data entry to do on your forms. Now, this ACA classification, we'll touch on that next, but it is the one additional field you need to populate for all your employees for reporting. To review your data, we recommend you generate a report. You can pull that report based on the fields you want to review. So once you select your fields, there's an option for you to save that template for future use. This slide shows you how you can access our reporting tool. It's time to get into the ACA section. So those of you with the ACA module turned on, you'll see an extra menu item on top here. So you click on that ACA menu, and then on the left here, there will be 3 sections with several menu items. We're going to touch on a few today. You're certainly welcome to go to all of them, but I'm going to show you my favorites. So the first place I recommend checking is this Manage Employees. I mentioned that ACA classification is the one additional field that needs to be added. That's over here. Fortunately, it's just a pull down with 3 simple options. All of you have full-time employees. Reminder for ACA, that's 130 hours monthly on average. A lot of you also have part-time employees. Some of you have what they call variable hour employees, meaning their hours fluctuate between full-time and part-time. You can either track that out of our system, such as in your payroll or timekeeping system, or you can use the tools in Navigator to help determine if variable hour employees had enough hours to be considered full-time. It's a mouthful. Okay, let's talk more about variable hour. If you do have variable hour employees and you choose to use Navigator to determine if they are full-time, then you need to load their hours into Navigator. It is required on variable employees, plus it's recommended you also load hours for your part-time employees. Navigator uses the look-back measurement method, and all payable hours need to be included: hours worked, sick, vacation, etc. Some of you have an integration set up with your payroll system. Note that these hours are not transmitted on that payroll integration, so you need to get them into Navigator. If you just have a few employees to populate, you can manually enter those hours through that Manage Employees section we were on before. Most of you use this Import Hours feature, which is on this Manage Hours section. Hours should be uploaded monthly throughout the year. However, if you haven't done already for a year, you can certainly still do that now. So click Import Hours. That takes us to this screen. So then you can click on the link to download the template, either monthly or daily version, based on how the information comes out of your system. So you'll populate the file, which I'll show you next, and then come back here to import. Here's an example of the 2 files. So you want to keep row 1 headers as is, no spaces in those header names, and keep the worksheet tab as is, labeled output. So really just keep in mind you only need to populate these blank fields and keep everything else the same. After importing, you'll get an import hours page that shows which records were imported successfully and if any failed. So you want to audit that data. If you find the hours you upload were incorrect or incomplete, you can re-upload to override the data. It won't add the hours that you already uploaded. Now we're going to the first menu item over here on the ACA console menu section, eligibility dashboard. This displays only employees with an ACA classification of variable hour. It's crucial for you to clear out any HR pending actions. Note that there are two tabs on this page, one for the employee in their new hire period and those in their standard stability period. Throughout the year, at least monthly, check both tabs and click HR pending action. Reminder, we're still all talking about variable hour employees. So if you don't have that or you're not using Navigator to track them, then you're skipping these steps. Okay, this takes us to a list of all your employees that have completed their measurement period, but their eligibility status has not been finalized. So go through each employee to finalize their eligibility status. You can see here that we have a few employees that averaged 130 hours. They are marked as eligible. On the row for each employee, click on the three dots, then select Finalize as appropriate. If an employee is marked ineligible, but you know they have more hours, or you see they don't have the full 12 months populated, then use the Add Hours option. Okay, we're done with the variable hours. So now that you confirmed you have all the hours populated and the right people marked as eligible, you can move on to the next step. In ACA 101 webinar, I discussed how to determine if your company is considered an applicable large employer, ALE. Navigator also offers a report. We recommend you check this at least annually, especially for those companies that hover at that 50 FTE mark. Note, this report can only pull the data you've entered, meaning you would need to have all your full-time employees in Navigator plus all hours loaded for all your non-full-time employees. So meaning it's only as good as the data that's in the system. So from the reports menu, scroll down to the audit report section and click on the ALE counts. In the year pull-down field, select the prior year. For example, if you want to know if you're considered an ALE for the 2025 calendar year, then select 2024, then generate. This page shows you the totals for the month, the data used for the ALE calculation. Then the bottom row has the monthly results. So in this example, the group fell below 50 FTE threshold for 3 of the months, but on average for the 2024 calendar year, they are still over 50 FTE. That means they're an ALE for 2025 with ACA reporting due this Q1. Next step is our affordability calculator. So back in our ACA menu, ACA console, affordability calculator. It's a very useful tool to help you predict if you'll have errors on your ACA forms, but it only checks rate of pay safe harbor. In the low cost plan field, use the pull down to select your appropriate plan. Navigator will show you a message indicating how many, if any, employees have possible affordability issues. So if you have that, click on the blue hyperlink. Now, reminder, if you have non-calendar plans, then you need to check both plan years. For example, first check your plan that started in 2024, then come back to this page to check your plan that started later in 2025. That displays a list of those employees for you to diagnose what's causing the issue. You can see here the list includes the employee's pay information because often the issue is outdated base pay data. Once you update that pay information, it usually clears the affordability issue. Now let's move on to the ACA setup menu items. So when you're in that ACA menu tab on top, we have 3 sections here. So now we're in the middle section, starting with assign ACA plans. This page may already be populated, but it's good for you to verify the settings before running ACA reports, because these settings affect how Navigator will populate the forms. These are all important columns to review, but I'll touch on a couple. Self-funded. Plan funding can affect who needs to file, plus which forms and specifically which parts of the forms. Most of you only have fully insured medical plans, so you leave this column blank. If you have a self-funded or level-funded medical plan, select the box. Is low-cost plan. This will affect which plan Navigator uses for the affordability calculations, plus which premium amounts is populated in line 15 of the 1095 forms, which we'll get into later. Now, the last item listed in this ACA setup menu, assign safe harbors. Again, for more information on affordability safe harbors, to know which one makes sense for your company, you can start with reviewing the information on our ACA page. Normally, a group uses the same safe harbor for all employees each year. However, you can change it each year, and you can use different safe harbors for different classes of employees. This example uses rate of pay safe harbor for all classes. Now, Navigator doesn't reference the created on date to determine which safe harbor to use. So if you want to change the safe harbor, then delete what's already there and add a new one. This can be a one-time step, but it's good to review annually. Now let's jump into setup for the actual ACA forms. All reporting is done on two types of forms. 1095 is the form for each employee. 1094 is mostly employer data, some of it a cover sheet. So in the 1094, 1095 reporting menu section, start with the first item, Part 1, Employer Information. If this is your first time using Navigator for ACA reporting, you'll need to populate this section. If you filed previously, then review and update as needed. Okay, these first two in purple. These items go together, but most of you will skip them. If you are part of the consider an aggregated ALE group, meaning you have multiple companies under common ownership, and you have them set up in Navigator as business units under this one account, then check both those first two boxes. If you're under common ownership, but you don't have all the other companies set up under business units in Navigator, then you can leave both blank. However, once you get into the NELCO reporting site, you will need to manually add each company's name and EIN. So please reach out if you fall into that bucket and need assistance. Question 2, are you an ALE? Either on your own or as part of an aggregated group. This determines which form the system will produce. Almost all of you would check this box. The only reason not to check the box is for small employers that are not an ALE, but you have employees covered on a self-funded or level-funded plan. Then we get into your company data. Make sure the data matches what you use for other official filings, such as your W-2s, especially the EIN and employer name. Scrolling down that same page, there's a primary contact field that will be listed on the company level 1094 form. Now we have optional settings. I said you'd have some options. First one, qualified offer method. So we covered this during ACA 101 webinar, but a main requirement is that you use the federal poverty limit safe harbor, which some of you are able to do. The second box there, the 1A, 2C code combination. If you check the first box, then you can also check the second box, however, not required. Regardless, if you check the second item, the 1A code will still populate, which is really all you need on the forms. Checking the second box will trigger the system to populate 2C for the months the employee is enrolled, which is optional if you use the qualified offer method. Okay, the third one there in our optional settings, collectively bargained or union employees. So yes, all employees need to be included, even union. For most of you that have union employees, you don't offer them coverage directly. Instead, you contribute to the union for them to offer coverage. If you do have these employee types, then check the box plus to ensure union employees are set up correctly. They need to be marked as collectively bargained, and an ACA classification is eligible, a non-benefit eligible class. The navigator will populate the codes for you on the forms. So if you fall into this group and have questions, then feel free to reach out. The last option here, using the 98% method transition relief. It's a mouthful. This is essentially you're attesting that you offered medical coverage to all your full-time employees, which you should all feel comfortable selecting. Now let's get into how you audit and file with Employee Navigator. This is where we'll spend the rest of the webinar. These are the 4 basic steps to process and transmit. Those middle 2, the audit and preview steps, are where you'll spend most of your time. The other 2 are pretty quick. We're going back to the 1094, 1095 reporting menu. Then the second option, audit and e-file. So go through each of the 4 steps in order. Let's start with clicking step 1. That takes us to our assign the ACA plan assignments. Here you can verify that what you already entered, but if you need to make edits, you can do so by clicking on the link. We're still on step 1. You scroll down the page. That shows the employer information, which will be used on the 1094 form. Review that. If needed, you can click on the link to make edits. That's it for step 1. Told you that one was quick. So then go ahead and click next. That takes us to step 2. I'm just showing you what the menu item looks like here. But so step 2, audit employee demographics and enrollment data. Employee Navigator warned you about some of the issues with employee information, so you can correct those before generating the forms. You can click on each one to review the data. Our priority is to clear out any errors, which would be coded in red. The main areas where we see errors are employees that are missing ACA classification or benefit class or missing demographic data. All of that is required. When you click on those red hyperlinks, you'll get these pages. So populate the appropriate data, then click Go Back. Repeat for any other errors, and then once you're done reviewing all the forms, all those audit items, then click Next. We're almost halfway through our slides. Now it's finally time to preview the form data. So in step 3, that takes us to generate 1095 page. For the ACA reporting year, select the tax year you're reporting information on. For this round, that's 2025, and really that should default for you. Then that green button, click Create Preview of Form Data, Generate Forms. This can take a couple minutes to process. It depends on the traffic on the Navigator site, which is a great reason to get your reporting done early. So a good time to take a deep breath, have another drink of tea before we get into the good stuff. Now, if you do end up editing any data that affects reporting, you'll want to come back to generate the forms again to have that data incorporated. Once generated, this screen will populate. So it's going to be mainly our home base, kind of a dashboard for all the forms. At this point, some of you, most of you, may still have some issues to clear. You'll see that with the orange boxes. We definitely need to address those because they will create errors in the forms. However, let's first click on View 1094. The top part is the information you entered previously for you to review once again. Now on to the most crucial area, the row for minimum essential coverage indicator. Some just call it MEC. So yes, no, where 95% of your eligible full-time employees offered affordable minimum essential coverage. That is the IRS mandate for ALEs. So if any month is marked no, and if any of your full-time employees receive subsidized coverage on the marketplace, such as Covered California, then it's pretty much a guarantee you'll receive a penalty letter from the IRS. It's crucial you have this row correct. A no for any month is definitely a red flag. Even if all of these are yes now, after you review everything else, I recommend checking back here one last time before filing. So if any month is no, we need to take action. So click in the first month that has a no. That takes you to a list of all employees used in the calculation. This is a good time to remind you that you own your ACA reporting data, which is why Navigator gives you options to override all that information. It's certainly recommended that you limit the use of the override options. Navigator is a robust system with ACA rules built in. If the HR benefits data you entered throughout the year is accurate, and ACA reporting should be clean. So with that, I'd much rather you take the time to diagnose the issue and correct the data that's feeding into the ACA reporting. All right, so this list includes the employees that are being used in the calculation. The employees marked as no in that first column for MEC are listed at the top. That means the system thinks they were not offered coverage for that month. In the ACA, the FTE column indicates who the system thinks should be offered coverage, meaning they were full-time. If there is an employee marked with a yes in the FTE column, but there's a no in the MEC column, that's who needs to be reviewed. If there's an error, it usually falls into one or two categories, such as HR data or coverage didn't get captured, or it could be a true coding exception. Navigator is a great system, but certainly no system can capture all the nuances. Reminder that coverage needs to be in place for the entire month. Therefore, if you start or end coverage mid-month, ACA reporting will not count that as covered for the month. Technically, you do have the option to override the system. If you click the Include button, that will mark the employee as being given an offer of coverage. Of course, I do recommend you first review the HR and coverage data for accuracy and make necessary corrections. A good place to start that research is by reviewing the 1095 forms, which we'll get into next. So you could just leave this page as is for now, handle any cleanup, then come back here for a final check. Click step 3 to return to the main Generate page. Now we'll start reviewing the ACA forms. We'll focus on two areas, starting with the Override 1095 form. This tool allows you to create forms for employees that the system did not. So click on the blue box in the top right. That takes us to a list of employees that the system is not generating a 1095 form for. Don't panic. For most of you, these are appropriate and changes are not needed. There are various reasons why they would be listed here, such as they were not eligible, or maybe they're variable hour employees still being measured. Again, the first recommendation is to pause, review their data to diagnose the issue. However, you certainly have the option to override. If you do choose to override an employee, click the Generate Form box for their row. Once done reviewing the list, click the Save Form Overrides. That will force the system to create a 1095 form for that employee. Note, Navigator does not automatically create forms for employees that terminated in January of the reporting year. So they terminated January of 25. They're going to be listed in this list of not getting a form. You can leave them as is, that's fine, or have the system generate. Back to this page. So next we need to check for people the system flagged. So click on the orange box on the left there, employees with unaffordable coverage or non-qualifying coverage. That takes us to a list of employees that the system flagged. This should list all the employees that were causing the no on that 1094 form, meaning the system thinks they were not offered coverage. Often the reason employee is in the list is due to something misconfigured in the ACA setup or on the employee's profile. A common reason is not having a safe harbor in place. So for each employee listed, click View next to their name to see their 1095 form. Now we're in their actual 1095 form. Navigator sticks with that orange color and puts a box around the fields that have a concern. So in this example, it's flagged line 16 because it's blank. So 1E in line 14 says you offered coverage. That code always needs to be paired with a code in line 16, either to indicate the employee enrolled or the employee waived, but the offer does meet one of the safe harbors. So first, diagnose and fix the issue. Common causes coded in the wrong class, such as part-time, not eligible, or coverage didn't get captured, or it started or stopped mid-month, or possibly a safe harbor is not set up. You can scroll down to see the information that's being pulled to determine the codes, which we'll show you. And then to drill deeper and to correct the data, you can go to the employee's information, could start in employee management and profile screens, then come back to the employee's 1095 and click Recreate 1095. And then verify all these orange boxes are gone, repeat for each employee that has listed in that orange warning. So we're just scrolling down here on that form. You can see these two slides show more of the data on the employee's 1095 screen. You can see that the employee's affordability information, then their plan information and whether they were covered or not. The system also shows you the hire and term dates. By reviewing all that, you may be able to spot the issue with HR data. After handling each employee, return back to the Generate 1095's Step 3 page. That should have removed the orange warning box or at least reduced the count to employees you know that should have been offered coverage, but you chose not to. When you're doing this on your own, it's good to pop back into that View 1094s that I mentioned. Check that MEC indicator column again to ensure yes for every month. Now let's move on to audit your individual forms. So click on View 1095s. This gives you a list of all employees getting a 1095 form. You can see there's a legend at the top. The blue shading means the employee was enrolled that month. To view an individual 1085 form, click the green View next to the employee's name. When you view an individual's 1085 form, you may get a message that California requires state filing. This is true. However, as I mentioned, for fully insured plans, the reporting from the carrier satisfies the requirement. Scroll down to see the 1095C codes used on the employee's form. If there are any issues with the codes, we have the orange boxes. This is where you should take the time to diagnose and fix any underlying cause. However, you do have the option to manually override codes. This is where I'll make another plug for ACA 101. You may need to watch or rewatch that to get comfortable with the codes and the appropriate combinations. Navigator does provide a legend. So in the top right, click What do the codes mean? That will pop up a window with a list of the codes and their definitions. We also have a codes chart on our M&G ACA page that shows which codes work together. In our example, line 14, 1H means no offer of coverage. Line 16, 2C means they were enrolled. So both of those can't be true, which is why it's flagged. Here you do have the option to manually override. For example, if you know the employee was offered full-time coverage for the entire month, you can change line 14 to code 1E. If you do, then that will add an orange box for line 15. So in line 15, if is the employee contribution, the dollar amount of that employee-only tier of your lowest cost plan. So this is all based on what was offered to the employee, not what they actually elected. So you can populate all of that here. If you do make a manual entry, Navigator will add blue shading. So now that this form is done, you can repeat those steps for each form. So in the top right, you can click the blue Next button to get to the next employee. Before we move on to actually transmitting the data, it's time for me to again plug how crucial it is to have clean HR benefits data. Maintain the data throughout the year will make the year-end processing much smoother. So you want to make sure you check employment dates, hire, rehire, termination, earnings data, salary, hourly base rate or W-2 data, depending on which safe harbor you're using, ACA classifications with correct effective dates, the full-time, part-time, variable hour. If you do make any changes to the HR benefits data, be sure to regenerate the 1095 forms. Let's check that 1094 again to ensure that minimum essential coverage is yes for all 12 months. That was the hard part. You made it. Now we can move on to transmitting the data, which is done in Nelco, the service provider that Employee Navigator partners with. So whether this is your first time or you've done filing before, we recommend you check this Manage e-file account page. That will take you to this page with a few options. Enter e-file site. This is the way you can get directly into Navigator to view the data if you're not already in the process. Manage users. If you filed through Navigator before, all your information should still be there, but it's good to verify the users and their access. Account details for you to review and update. If this is your first time doing ACA reporting with Employee Navigator, you first need to establish your e-file account. This page will only have one option, create account. So click continue to enter your basic data, such as name and email. If you run into any issues, double check the HR permissions you have set up in Navigator. You can certainly reach out if you have permission issues. Click next. Get back to the audit and e-file section. Let's see. Okay, so next we're gonna go back to the audit. So here, back in our 1094, 1095 reporting, audit and e-file, we're gonna click on step 4, e-file. If Navigator detects errors, then those need to be cleaned up. I'm sure by this point your data is clean. If not, you can click on the error message to make the corrections. Once errors are clean, you'll get this screen with the green bar that says transmit data to the e-file provider. This is not transmitting the IRS yet. This is simply moving the data from Employee Navigator to Nelco. If you've already transmitted this round, you'll see an orange banner indicating that you already sent your data to Nelco. If so, check the Nelco site to prevent duplicates. Normally, you only transmit once a year. So when ready, click Transmit 1095 data to e-file provider. That should give you this message: the 1095 data transmission was successful. This means Nelco now has the data. So click on the green button, Enter e-file site. That will open a new tab in your browser window on the Nelco site. So this is where the actual transmission happens. So time for a reminder about state filing. California and a few other states have requirement to receive ACA reporting. However, fully insured plans and medical carriers will handle that. So the employer only needs to do it if they have a plan that is not fully insured. This page may default to electing state filing. If all your coverage was fully insured, then be sure to only select a federal option. Even if you do, on the next page, Navigator may ask again about state filing. So if you get that, you can click no. So as a reminder, when I showed you the pricing at the top, we do recommend the bundle with the e-filing, the print and mail, and the online retrieval. So those 3 pieces. Nelco, with that, they will mail a hard copy form to your employees, plus they'll be available on the actual Employee Navigator site for active employees for them to retrieve online. So once your selection is complete, click Next. That takes us to the 1094 page once again. So a reminder, this is company level information. The data should already be populated with what came from Navigator, but you should review it. It's one last check of that minimum essential coverage column to confirm yes for every month. Once done, click Next to get back to the main 1094 page. Now we come to this submit page with 3 steps. We're in step 1, review cart. Nelco gives you the option to preview your forms or download a detail report. I recommend you at least preview forms, do one last check, maybe a spot check such as your own form, executives, or anyone with unique circumstances. If you find issues, you can click the Remove All Payers button, then go back into Navigator to make corrections, then send the data to Nelco again. When you're ready, click Next. That takes us to step 2, payment details. Either select your card or click Add a card. Populate the billing information. Usually people use a company credit card, then click Save. Okay, step 2. So Nelco describes this step as a point of no return. You will see a message on your screen, important. Once you submit your forms, we cannot stop the filing or printing. It's like dropping your forms in a mailbox at the post office. After this point, the only way you can make edits is by filing a correction. So once your payment information is saved and you're ready to submit, click Pay and Submit. That takes you to step 3, complete. So verify you get this congratulations message. On the bottom left in that box, you can see Nelco lists what they're going to do based on what you chose to purchase. So next, we highly recommend you download and save the forms. We have a couple ways to get there. On this bottom row, you can click Print Forms, or we recommend to click Return to your filing home. That takes us back to the initial screen in Nelco. On the right, click on the tile Form Filing History. If you've used Navigator Nelco previously, your prior couple years will show here. Note that the system only saves the last 3 years of filing, which is why it's so important for you to download the data and save it locally. So from this page, you have a few options we can see in the legend. For now, in the row for your submission, click on the print icon. That takes us to this print page. By default, all employees will be checked, which is what you want. So just click Next. This page gives you the option of which type of data to download. So check all the boxes, then click Download. Save it locally in an area where it can be accessible by your team. Nelco will send a confirmation email to the address you have set up in Navigator with your confirmation number, plus an email as they complete each step of the process. So be sure to save those emails and look for the results. Some of you will have an additional step. The IRS will validate the names and social security numbers in the filing against their database. It's common there'll be a few mismatches. So you may get an email from Nelco that says TIN validation error. Don't worry, your transmission is still accepted and valid. It just means the government computers noted a mismatch and they're telling you there's potential issue. This is not an official IRS notice of a problem. So TIN means like social security number or name. So you should research which employees caused the issue, then go to your HR data to make sure there are no changes that should be recorded. Maybe somebody got married and changed their name, or it could be that their legal name is longer in your system than the IRS allows because they have some limitations. So something like that is fine to leave as is. So often I see issues on new hires. So a good place to double check is their social security card, their number on the I-9 form. And then if you don't already have one, you can ask them for a copy of their card. There is an option in Nelco which provides you with an Excel report to tell you which employees are causing these errors. The Nelco systems walk you through making those corrections if you think you need to. If you do correct the social or legal name, you want to make sure you update that back in Navigator and your HL payroll system so it's accurate going forward. That's it. We made it to the end. That was a lot of information. I do recommend you revisit the slide deck and recording as a reference when you prepare and audit your reporting. We have a link here to our ACA readiness page on our Morris at Garritano website with more information on ALE determination, affordability, safe harbor, and ACA reporting, including the codes chart I mentioned. Also on this slide, we've included links to the federal and California ACA links if you want to jump out there. But it will take a moment to go to our ACA page. All right, so on this screen, we start with on top, we have our little chart here, which is from the ACA 101 webinar, showing you who needs to file which forms. Then we have a section on ALE determination and affordability. And for each of these, we start with a little video where I give you an overview of the topic, and then we have tools in there. There are calculators, there's links out to mineral, and then down here with the reporting section. So I mentioned the Form 1095 reporting coach cheat sheet. So we highly recommend utilizing that. I have it open when I'm reviewing forms because there's so many letters and numbers, it's hard to memorize all of that. And then scroll down to our reporting section, we have our two different webinars. You can see here under 101, it already has watch recording because we already posted that. So this one will change to that later this week. And if you scroll down, we also have FAQs. So if we don't get a question answered for you on general ACA, then you'd want to check here, but certainly reach out with questions. So thank you for sticking with me through this. As I mentioned, a few days, links to the recording and slide deck of this webinar will be emailed to all that registered, plus available on our website. But we have a few minutes left, so I'm happy to answer any questions. You can submit questions using that Q&A feature. However, as I mentioned, for company-specific questions, it's really best to reach out separately. We have Sophia in the background here. Do we have any questions that have come in?
Hey, yeah, we have a couple of questions today. So first, on slide number 3 on ACA reporting costs, we had a question on the last option. It only says federal filing. Does this not include state?
Yes, correct. So again, you would only need to do state if you have self-funded, level-funded plan, which I think we only have a couple of those using Navigator. So then you would want to use the state bundle. So the new option that the IRS allows for upon request, that's more of a federal thing, not so much of a state requirement, the state option there. So yeah, so if you need to do state, again, self-funded, level funded, then you would need to check one of these options. Right, so this online retrieval with the federal e-file, again, is only for the fully insured plans.
Okay, thank you. And next question, on our 1094 form, the line that says number of FTEs is blank all the way across. Is that okay?
Yes, good question. We did mention this in the 101 webinar, but we said how showed you there was those a few optional items when you set the 1094. That bottom one, that 98%, that's you attesting that you offered coverage to all your full-time employees. So then you don't have to list how many full-time employees you had each month.
Okay, perfect. And last question, what if an employee had a LOA and insurance was canceled for the remainder of the year due to employee portion non-payment? How do I code those months? Do I have to record with a different code?
Yeah, that can get a little tricky. A couple of you reached out last year with questions. So that one we should talk through because it can make a difference based on circumstances. So you want to reach out to me directly on that one, or if we have your name, then I can reach out to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That was all the questions from the webinar.
Very good. Okay. Well, again, thank you all for joining us today. Stopped here on the last one. So I do have mentioned here on our slide, I have an email address, compliance@morrisgarritano.com, so you can reach out with any other questions. But thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next time.